Welcome to the Fried Egg Golf Podcast. I'm Garrett Morrison, and today we're chatting with Stacy Lewis about winning at St. Andrews and about captaining the U.S. Solheim Cup team. But first, we're going to talk about what we're in on and what we're out on in the golf world this week. And here to do that with me is Meg Adkins. Meg, what are you in on?
Hey, Garrett. I am in on Lydia Ko. I didn't really expect much from her last week at the Scottish, coming off the big Olympic win and, all the high of that. She comes in, ties for ninth. First of all, she could have dropped out of playing the Scottish. She shows up. She's obviously going to be playing this week at St. Andrews. And it's been so impressive to see her get back some form that she hasn't had this year. Besides that win at the very beginning of the year, she kind of got lost in the woods, missed 2 cuts in a row, which is extremely rare for her. When she was, going on that gold medal run, the LPGA sent out some stats. And one of them that really caught my eye was Lydia has 255 total starts. She's made 238 cuts. So 6 of those 17 cuts have been in the past 2 years. So Lydia's had a very long career, as we're all aware. And if we didn't see much more out of her, that's fine. She's had an incredible career. But to see her, get the gold, get the Hall of Fame point that she needed, and peak on the biggest stage that the women's golf has had this year, I'm just extremely impressed by her digging deep, finding some game that she didn't have earlier this year. And now we get, St. Andrews, home of golf. She can continue this magical ride that she's been on. But really impressed in how she showed up last week at the Scottish, played great, and super excited to see her at St. Andrews.
How clear is the sense at this point that she's going to be retiring soon? People seem to be hinting around at that. I'm not sure how much smoke there is to that fire, so to speak. So what's the deal with that?
From her, she said that'll for sure be her last Olympics. So that gets the clock ticking on, 3-4 years max, which would put her around 30, which is, again, per her. She said she doesn't really see herself playing much past 30. Okay. So yeah, that's why it's been so cool to see this. We know we don't have much more time with her playing regularly, at least playing a full schedule. So yeah, it's been, 3 years will go by quick.
So what I'm in on this week is social videos of Billy Horschel calling guys to give them FedEx Cup updates. I think this should be a regular feature. I think they should do it every week throughout the PGA Tour season. This week, there was a relatively well-viewed video of Billy Horschel calling Keegan Bradley, who made the cut, the top 50 cut for the next stage of the playoffs on the number. And they just filmed Billy calling Keegan and giving him the specifics of how likely it was that he was going to move on to the second playoff event. And it was just a hilarious random video. It's not good content, but I loved it because I like the idea of Billy Horschel just being the guy to do that. Clearly, they made the video just because Keegan Bradley wasn't there, had already left the golf course, which maybe shows how much he cares about actually making the next stage of the playoffs for the FedEx Cup. But they started talking about catering and food at the end, and it was just this the strange video. And I really would like to see a regular feature of Billy Horschel giving guys kind of mundane points updates at the end of every PGA Tour event. I hope that's not too much to ask, but I think that the social team over there should make that happen. All right, let's get to what we're out on this week. Meg, what are you out on?
I am out on slow play. It's just been
courting controversy here, Meg. You're in on Lydia Ko. You're out on slow play. Come on now.
These are hot takes.
Jeez.
I don't if you disagree with me on that, I'm sorry, but I'm out on slow play. It's the going back to the Olympics, the Morgan Matreau, she was on the clock for 3 days in a row, and not just a couple holes. We're talking a couple days. That was the majority of her round. And like, what's the point of having a slow play policy if you can be on the clock 3 rounds in a row and have no punishment, no penalty, nothing at all. I loved John Wood just blatantly saying, I think it was in the second or third round, like they're making no effort to catch up either. So I'm out on that. That was in it. And just to be clear, this was not her group or any other circumstances. It was really just her.
Just her. Yeah.
Yeah, just her. Then we have, the Kuchar debacle, and it's way darker than our cameras appear, and 5.5 hour rounds. And then, yesterday at Memphis, you got NBC going away, not cutting out of the interview because they've run out of their allotted time. And that's, that can be on NBC. You could have stayed with it. You didn't need to cut, in the middle of that. But how are we running out of time in these like giant windows of coverage that we have? It's just, I don't know, it's obviously not something that just happened overnight, but it just seems we've gone so backwards on slow play in the professional game. And on the, recreational side of things too. I was out last weekend on vacation and went out for a round, and this is a walkable course. Easily could have, walked it and had no issues keeping pace with carts. But it's one of those where there's no difference in the green speed between walking and cart. And that's, you've seen that here and there. I feel like I've seen it more lately where it's like, not even an option. And it's like, I feel like that's under the guise of it being a pace of play thing when it's really just a monetary thing. And we've done this like hard left turn with some of these policies on the recreational side of things at courses. And the example that we see on TV every week is even worse. And it's just, I don't know how we course correct, but it's getting painful every week when it's an issue. Well,
it would be nice if the leading tours in the world set a good example.
Yes.
But they are currently setting the worst example. And
right.
I'm not really sure why on the LPGA Tour they're not addressing the problem. Maybe it's for the same reason that they aren't on the PGA Tour, which is that they're scared of the players and just don't want that battle, which is a shame because they should want that battle. It affects the product, and there are clear things that can be done to enforce pace of play. And we know what those things are. It's just about the willingness to do them. So yeah, it is an issue. Let me talk about what I'm out on. Meg, I'm out on the Women's Scottish Open being held at Dundonald Links.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? Yep. I'm sure it's a fine course. It seems like a fine course. The architect, Kyle Phillips, is good at what he does. But this course was built in 2005. And what makes Scottish golf so special, part of what makes it so special, is this amazing array of really old courses that are connected to the roots of the game. And I just feel like the Scottish Open, both men's and women's, should take advantage of some of that history. And, on the men's side, the excuse is always a lot of these older links courses are not long enough to accommodate a modern men's tournament. And okay. But on the women's side, that excuse is not as relevant. They're just going to Dundonald Links because I think it's probably convenient and it's the best way to make money. Dundonald Links wants to host it. I just feel like they could try a little bit harder. Maybe go to Golan, where they've been before. Royal Aberdeen is set up to host big tournaments, but also, you could go to North Berwick, I think. Could you go to Royal Dornoch? Could you do Cruden Bay? Could you do Nairn or Western Gales? I mean, there are so many wonderful courses that can host tournaments, that host qualifiers and amateur tournaments, could host a Women's Scottish Open, I believe, that are just being left on the table because we keep wanting to go back to these modern courses where it's just a little bit more convenient to hold these tournaments. So I think that's a bit of a miss by the Women's Scottish Open.
Not to burst your bubble, but the Irish Open next week is at the iconic O'Meara course at Carton House in County Kildare. Are you familiar with that one?
No. Can't say that I've heard of that one before.
And this is a LET event. It's not co-sanctioned with the LPGA, but one, why
Which
are we
the
having
Women's Scottish Open is, by the way. So LET, it used to be just an LET event. Now it is co-sanctioned. So they've got a little bit of clout behind them. They could do something, but they're not doing it. The Irish Open, okay. I haven't heard of that course. I don't want to say anything negative about it necessarily, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be, it doesn't sound like it's going to be Royal County Down.
I feel like there are better options. And I don't know why it's after the British Open either. We could have a cool links lead up, and we're going Dundonald, St. Andrews, O'Meara course. Oh, I don't know about that.
O'Meara course. Is it named after Mark O'Meara?
I was digging into that a little bit ago.
It does sound like an Irish name, so possibly it's just named after, an Irish dude. But it would be funny if it were named after Mark O'Meara.
That'd be great.
All right, so Meg, we have got a great show coming up here. We're going to speak to the great Stacy Lewis. Big honor to have her on the podcast. You and I both interviewed her. This was a couple of weeks ago, so if there are any references to time that confuse people, that's why. We talked to her when she was available a couple of weeks ago. First, though, we're going to do a quick preview of the Women's Open. Now, before we roll into that, I do want to talk about Golf Forever. Now, Meg, you may be noticing at this point in your life, you and I are approximately the same age. You're not as loose on the course as you used to be. You can't just roll out of bed and go play golf and expect to be effective. I've certainly hit that stage of my life. It's happened all of a sudden in the past few years, and it's really gotten worse very, very quickly. And so I would imagine that many listeners can relate with this. I hope that you don't relate with this, but most of us do. And if that's the case, your body is probably holding your game back, and it is time to change that. You can do something about that. Golf Forever is an at-home training system that combines great coaching and personalized follow-along video programs in the Golf Forever app with an incredibly versatile golf training tool called the Swing Trainer. This program and this tool will help you add flexibility, strength, and balance, and you'll find yourself far more able to hit the first tee ready to go. I've been using the Golf Forever app and Swing Trainer for the past couple of months now, and my strength, balance, flexibility have improved quite a bit already, especially as those factors relate to the golf swing. So I'm staying committed to that and excited about the results that I'm seeing. And more importantly, I'm expecting to play a lot more pain-free golf in the future. So to get started right now, go to golfforever.com and use the code EGG, EGG, to save an extra $50 on any training system package. That's golfforever.com, code EGG. All right. Now, before we bring on Stacy Lewis, let's talk a little bit about the Women's Open at the Old Course. First of all, Meg, have you been keeping an eye on the forecast?
Yeah, it looks like we're going to get some wind.
That's what I've heard.
The term was unsettling. Nice little, Scottish term for you there. And it was interesting. Charlie Hull had a great quote talking about the wind at Dundonald. So while the course, I wasn't too wild about, they did get some elements that it sounds like they're going to get at St. Andrews this week too. So Charlie Hull was talking about how, it was just punch shot after punch shot, and they had this wind almost every round. And she was almost like caught off guard when she had a normal shot on, the wind died down, or she had just a normal stock shot. And she said it was just great to kind of get in that mode of not having stock shots and always having to account for the wind and getting comfortable with the wind doing what you think it's going to do and seeing it affect your shots and seeing the end result. I think that's absolutely something to keep an eye on. I hope we get the wind that they're forecasting. We're still a little ways out, so it could change, obviously. But yeah, we didn't quite get that with the men. A lot of sunshine, of some calm days a couple years ago, and I hope we get some elements there, because I think we'll see those who played and talked about it, which was a lot of the top of the leaderboard at the Scottish, feel a little bit more comfortable than those who maybe weren't there this past week.
I feel like my ideal weather for a links course or the Old Course for viewing a tournament would be sunny, but really windy. That's the combination I'm looking for, because if you just get like sort of the classic Scottish weather where it's really rainy and windy, that's fun too. We kind of got that at Royal Troon. It didn't rain that much, but it did a little bit. It just looks a little bit miserable, right? When you're not, it doesn't make you want to go to Scotland and play links golf necessarily when you see these players just getting battered by the elements. And there is something fun about that. I don't want to naysay that, but when it's sunny and beautiful and everything looks great, but also super windy, for me, that's the ideal combination. So I'm hoping we get a little bit of that coming up this week. So I guess we'll see.
We'll see. Fingers crossed.
Okay. Okay. So some players to keep an eye on. Obviously, the hottest player in the world right now appears to be Lauren Coughlin. Kind of just having an amazing couple of weeks. What has she looked like to you? What's coming together in her game, and what would you predict for her at the Old Course?
Yeah, she's coming in with a ton of confidence and feeling great about everything, which has not been the case. You know, she's always been a great ball striker. The difference this year is her putting. 7 1-putts to finish up on Sunday at the Scottish, including the great birdie at 18. So I think that having that club in the bag going so well and having it be a strength this year has just boosted her confidence in every other aspect of her game. You know, like knowing that you're going to roll some putts in, if you get in trouble, you know, that putter's going to save you a couple strokes here and there. So that's been the biggest improvement, you know, from her game side of things. But I think, you know, the other thing, and Justin Ray had some great, you know, stats and stuff after her win. The really the amazing thing with Lauren is the fact that she's 31 and is just seeing the success as quote unquote an old on the LPGA tour.
Yeah, this is she's older than Lydia Ko apparently plans to be when she retires.
Yes. And she is the first person on the LPGA tour to get her first 2 wins after turning 30 since Karen Stupples in 2004. That's per Justin Ray. So 20 years.
Shout out Karen Stupples. That's a good one.
Yeah, shout out Karen Stupples. Love Karen. And I think, you know, the patience and the perseverance to stick with it when the game just keeps getting younger around you. And, you know, we're all about, you know, instant gratification, immediate results. And for her to stick with it, I've got to think that this delayed gratification of that first win finally coming was so sweet. And then to have just the lid be off and to get the second one a couple weeks later has to just feel incredible for her. You know, and it's just great to see good things happen to good people. And Lauren's that, and so excited for her, you know, not only this week, but at Solheim, she's locked that up. Her family lives about an hour away, so that's going to be incredible. And, you know, that was her goal at the beginning of the year, was play well enough, get on that Solheim Cup team. So she's, you know, she's reached her goals this year, and it's really cool to see the success, the delayed success, and the perseverance pay off.
Okay, so what's the deal with Nelly Korda?
Yeah, when I talked about, you know, the wind and the forecast and the players talking about how important it was to get comfortable in it, you know, Nelly didn't play last week. She took a break after the Olympics. She's still overseas.
She took a break before the Olympics too,
right?
As I recall.
Right. Yeah, she's just kind of have, you know, European summer, which is you know, go for
totally
it.
Fine. That's her call. That's her call.
Yep.
But she does seem to be searching for something right now. It doesn't seem entirely peaceful inside the mind of Nelly Korda at the moment.
No, and you got to feel like with, you know, this being the final major, you know, there is the Solheim Cup later this year, but this is the last one. And yes, she has one major win at Chevron, but it's been real tough in the other majors. The Olympics was disappointing too. I mean, the big number and the big mistakes, and it's crazy to think that we'd be talking about things going off the rails and her not being able to get it back on track with how incredible and steady she looked at the beginning of the year. But that's what we've seen at these big events, Lancaster, Sahali, Olympics, the big numbers, and not being able to correct the ship. And you just wonder in the elements at St. Andrews, not coming in with any type of prep, and that, like Off National was completely different. And that's the last time she played. You just wonder if that's going to, happen again. It's wild to talk about her season being disappointing, but if St. Andrews is another rough go, I mean, it's a disappointing major season.
Yeah, for sure. You can't help but see it that way, considering the stretch that she had earlier in the year. The expectations are really high, and the way that she is kind of bombing out of some of these tournaments is just indicating that she's not necessarily in bad form technique-wise. I could be wrong about that, but she's clearly still capable of going low and playing that great golf that she played for months straight earlier in 2024. But she just has these rounds and she just shoots 80. And so it's interesting to watch. It's more interesting than just seeing somebody kind of shoot one over or something and not ever get into their game. So Nelly Korda is a great watch right now, but it is a little bit concerning. It's hard to figure out exactly what's going on.
Yeah, and it's anyone's bet which Nelly's going to show up this week.
Right.
No clue.
It's the two Nellies. Plenty of other players to talk about. I want to just shout out Lydia Vu real quick. She's back in the mix after some time off, and clearly still playing high level golf, and she goes into this week the defending champion. So definitely a player to keep an eye on. But I want to make sure that we get to our interview with Stacy Lewis. It was so fun to talk with Stacy. One last point going into the Women's Open, and this is something that kind of comes up in a way in our Stacy Lewis interview, and it's just that the Women's Open is in really good shape. The R&A has done a great job since taking over the operations of this tournament several years ago, of increasing the tournament's prestige and going to truly worthy venues that make the event feel like a great event. Stacy mentions at one point in our conversation that when she won at St. Andrews in 2013, it was different. It was being run by a different organization. The tournament wasn't quite at the high level that you would expect an R&A run tournament to be at. And that's because the R&A wasn't yet running the tournament. And so it's just striking to think about how recently this tournament has come together. You would think that this would be like the women's version of the Open, a tournament with really, really deep history, but it's actually not that tournament. They've made it feel like that in the last several years, but this tournament doesn't actually have a really, really extensive history. And so it still needs to build itself up, and going to St. Andrews is an important step in that direction, and properly setting up the course, making the course really shine, making sure that you can play on days where there are some interesting conditions, and having a very professionally run tournament, a tournament that's run like a major at a great venue. That's how you turn the Women's Open into a tournament worthy of the name.
This is the one that was number one circled on the calendar, big, bold circle. It's here. I can't wait. It's going to be an incredible week for women's golf.
All right, let's get to our interview with Stacy Lewis. All right, Meg Adkins and I are here with the one and the only Stacy Lewis. Thank you for joining, Stacy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
So we have a lot to talk about. We're going to release this episode on the week of the Women's Open, so we're recording this a little bit ahead of time. but obviously you have some experience with opens at St. Andrews, and we'll get into that a bit. And then we'll also talk about some Solheim Cup stuff as well. That's a big responsibility of yours this year. Lots of interesting things to touch on there. So it has been 11 years at this point since you won at St. Andrews. When you think about that week, what comes to mind first?
That I can't believe it's been 11 years. Just the fact that I won there first and foremost, but I wish we would have been back sooner. That's kind of the first thing. But I mean, I absolutely love St. Andrews. I love the town and being there, and, just the golf nuts that are around there. And, I've made efforts over the years just to stop back by the Dunvegan and look at the 18th hole and walk around a little bit, just because it's one of my favorite places in this world that I've been to.
So was that week the first time that you had played there, or that you had been there for golf?
No, actually, I played Curtis Cup there in 2008. It was my last event as an amateur. And that was the first time I had really been overseas. I had traveled like that. It was first time playing links golf. So we got paired up with local caddies, and I just fell in love. I just embraced being there, embraced learning the game. And that was really where I learned to love links golf and love St. Andrews.
What were some of the things that you learned in that kind of first trip over? What were some of the big discoveries for you?
Well, I played the old course 11 times in 7 days over that week of the Curtis Cup, between practice rounds and matches. And I got this great caddy that he would just say, "Hey, take pitching wedge. We're going to land it here and it's going to roll up," or like just various chip shots. There were holes where he had me miss the fairway on purpose, just so we weren't in bunkers. And, we played in all sorts of weather that week. We had sun, we had rain, we had everything. So it was just more just how to play links golf and when to pull out the putter, when to keep it on the ground, when to get it up in the air. Really just how to play the game over there.
Getting back to the Women's Open week, when you were playing the course that week, at that point, you had a good amount of experience with LPGA Tour venues, normal tour venues. What aspects of the old course do you think made it the most different from those golf courses that you would play on a regular basis?
Well, I mean, links golf, anytime you go play links golf, it's different than what we play on a normal basis. For me going there was more, my caddy Frazier that I had that week of Curtis Cup, he actually came out and walked practice rounds with us and helped my caddy, that caddies for my week in and week out, just helped him learn the golf course and where to hit it on certain holes. So I think that was beneficial. But it's more being there and 1 in 18 and being in the town and the walk over the bridge and just more the feel that you get at St. Andrews, I think is what makes it felt different than anything else.
Gotcha. So getting to the tournament itself,
Mm-hmm.
do you remember the day that play was suspended, that Saturday? Because my understanding is that my memory is that it was sunny. It wasn't like it was raining, but the wind was pretty high. What was it like that day?
Yeah, so this event was run at the time by the LGU. This was before the RNA really came on board with course setup and all those types of things. And so the green speeds, I think, got away from them. They're probably faster than what the RNA would do now. Seeing a forecast, the RNA would probably slow them down. So back then I don't think we had the control over the golf course like we would now. And so we got to Saturday and they sent a couple groups out. I never actually started that day. But it was a wind out. And the one thing I remember about that day is that I went out and practiced, and because practice facilities were open, you could go hit balls and do whatever you want. But I just wanted to stay in the rhythm of what I was doing. I didn't want to just sit in my hotel room all day. Like I needed to still do something. So, and I just remember being one of the only people out there on the range, out there by myself hitting balls but it was like, I don't know, even though it was windy, you could still go hit golf shots and work on your game.
You probably got some good practice hitting some shots in the wind that day.
Yeah. I mean, it was very windy, but it was the greens. I mean, we could have played golf. Yes. I mean, it wasn't too windy where you couldn't have hit certain shots. It was more the green speeds were too fast. And as you guys know, those greens at St. Andrews are relatively flat too. There's not a whole lot blocking it when the wind does blow.
So what you're saying basically is that they robbed us of a really fun day of watching golf.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
What were the challenges for you of playing that 36-hole final day?
Just the energy, and we had been on a streak. I don't remember what it was, but there had been a couple majors over the last probably year and a half going into there where we had done 36-hole finals. So it wasn't relatively like surprised by it or wasn't not prepared for it. So it was more just the energy. You had your first tee time at 6. They started back at 6 in the morning, and then they gave you went inside your scorecard. Here's some lunch, make a little box, and off you go again. So it was you just kept going. There was really no stopping to it. And I was, I think 4 or 5 groups ahead of the leaders. And so that really, I think that helped me out more than anything.
Yeah, no repairing, right? And so you just kind of cruised right through. You knew what your schedule was going to be. Correct.
Yeah, you packed an extra pair of socks and you packed all the clothes you needed for the day and you changed your socks and you kept going. I mean, it was just one of those days, and you didn't stop until the last putt fell.
Now, I'm not sure what your recall is of specific shots and specific holes, but I am curious about the 17th hole. This was a crucial hole for you in this tournament, the 71st hole. Can you just take me through playing that hole on that day in the final round? What were some of your thoughts? What was your strategy? And what were your feelings about the shots you were hitting?
Yeah. 17, you pick a letter on the hotel that you like, to hit over the corner there. And it's different based on the winds and all that. But for us, it's really important for us to get in the fairway because you're hitting, I think one round I hit 4-iron, the other round I hit 5-iron. So you're hitting a relatively long club into that green where the guys can blow it into the rough and kind of get away with it because they're hitting a little bit shorter of a club. So for us, it was get in the fairway. And then I had this shot I was hitting all week. I called it my low flat shot, and just meaning I tried to keep the hands a little lower, a little flatter at the top, and ball flight just came out flatter. And that was, it was a shot I was hitting all week with my caddy. And so in the first round we played, the number was kind of the low flat 4-iron, and I hit it perfect. It didn't quite get up the hill though. It kind of hit into the bottom and stayed in the bottom, which is fine. I mean, that's literally what you're trying to do on that shot is keep it down there in the front of the green. And so come around the second round, and now it's the yardage for the low flat 5-iron. And again, it came off perfect, except this time it actually bounced up the hill and went to 3 feet. And I mean, to this day is the shot of my life, the shot of my career. The 5-iron's in my office at home, in a bag. It's set off to the side, and it'll be there forever.
How often do you hit the low flat shot outside of links golf? Is that a shot that you draw on?
No, I mean, unless need to go under a tree or around something. It's more it's a links golf shot that I just kind of learned just how to hit. And I've always played golf that way, is just to hit shots. Like I like to see the golf ball move. I like to see it have some turn to it. And so I think that's why I've played well over and why I enjoy links golf so much is because how creative you can be, and you can hit shots that ride the wind, or you can cut it back into the wind. So I've always enjoyed the creativity of it.
Given the stakes, given the setting, like you said, you've got your 4 or 5 groups ahead of the leaders at that point on 17. Is that, before you hit that 5-iron, are you thinking this is a do or die moment? I've got to get a couple here at the close. Are you a leaderboard watching at that point? Given the stakes, just how much pressure were you feeling at that moment?
Well, again, this was 11 years ago. There weren't many leaderboards out there. So I honestly didn't really know exactly where I stood. And because I was so far ahead, I just kind of had in my head to post a number, just to get to the clubhouse and post a number. And you're trying to get through 17 and just not have carnage. If you make birdie, par, when you make par, you're probably picking up half a shot on the field. So it was really just post a number and see what happens. And, honestly, the 3, it was like a 3.5 footer that thing broke so much. I had to play it outside the hole. So that the putt was almost just as hard as that shot.
Going to the 18th hole, I seem to recall you taking putter from pretty far out for your approach there. What went into that decision?
Yeah, so it was it was your typical kind of that front left pin, and hit driver. Play was just to get driver down there as far as possible, and we were somewhere in the range of 40 to 50 yards, something like that. And to hit that chip, I mean, you literally just have to hit it perfect. It has to be in the right spot in the hill with the right amount of spin. Can't have too much spin or not enough. And again, it was like just the position we were in the tournament. Let's not make a mess of this. Same kind of feeling, right? So we kind of got the number, and I said to my caddy, I said putter, and he said, yep. And that was it. There was no discussion to it. We both kind of the same play. And I hit it a little too hard, got it back there, I don't know, 20, 25 feet, something like that. But again, just with where I was in the tournament, I didn't need to force anything and, try to be the hero in that moment.
Well, you ended up holing that putt, right? That was an up and
I
down.
did.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. And the cool part is, so I learned aim point forever ago from Mark Sweeney, and he was actually there that week. And we talked about that whole location and that putt back up the hill and just how slow it is more than anything. Like, it's so hard to get yourself to hit it hard enough. And I actually had a similar putt in Curtis Cup. It was only 3 years prior. And so I knew the break, I knew what the putt did, and I just knew I had to hit it hard enough in how slow it was up the hill. So it was, again, like, I've had some putts over my career that I've called my caddy off of, or it's been like that moment where it's like, I got it. Like, you just see it, you see the read, you see where you need to hit it. And that was one of them.
Was there an immediate realization for you of how significant it was to win at the old course, or is that something that has kind of grown over time as you've reflected on that week?
Oh, it was so significant in that moment. I mean, we actually stayed at the Dunvegan that week, and Sheena, who owns the Dunvegan, I came off 18 and she was bawling, crying, and just, to see the reaction of my parents and my family. And, we had to wait. I had to wait for those probably a good 30, 45 minutes before I actually found out I won. And I think it was then, like, in that time frame when, I went into the locker room down in the clubhouse and had some quiet time, and you realize where you are and what you're doing, and that you're a part of history. Only two women have won at the old course, and you're now one of them, and the other one's Lorena Ochoa. So
right.
It's pretty darn cool.
Did you end up having a party at the Dunvegan afterwards?
Oh yes. There was, what's crazy is that night they actually announced the Solheim Cup team. Meg Mallon was there announcing her picks. And so, I was doing my winners press conference, and then they pulled me right into the Solheim Cup one. And and ended up with the Solheim Cup team there, and kind of in the back room. And my college coach and her husband were there. We actually had quite a bigger. There was about 8 people, I think, there with us throughout the week, just some friends of our family, and so it was really cool to be able to celebrate with them and in that setting.
How would you assess the state of your game going into St. Andrews the second time here?
It's not where I want it to be. This year's been a struggle. I've had trouble with my golf swing and trying to, balance life and everything that's going on. I mean, I think of life now versus life 11 years ago. I'm in a completely different place. And, in 2013, it was just Stacy, and it was all about golf and how I could get to number 1 in the world and how I could win majors. And now you have a kid, you have a husband, you have a Solheim Cup to deal with. You've got, a lot of other things that I'm balancing, and I'm also 11 years older. So a lot's different, but the love for the old course doesn't change.
Regardless of, your game and how you end up playing, you're in the field, correct? You're committed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. I don't think you'd miss that. Yeah.
No, I will.
How cool
I will be there.
Yeah. We don't know when the women will be back at St. Andrews. The RNA doesn't have them out 30 years like some of the other majors. Mm-hmm. How much are you looking forward to, walking across Woken Bridge on 18 again and just being back and having that moment to reminisce on what happened 11 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I've definitely thought about is this potentially the last time I play at the old course? We're not on a rotation like the guys where it's every 5 years. So, you see players like Kari Webb's coming back to play. Everybody kind of wants one more go at the old course. So I'm hoping that they give us another go at this and don't wait 11 years, because there's so many players on our tour, lots of new ones to the old course. There's probably a handful that played in 2013. So, I hope that with the RNA, they'll make a plan for us to come back sooner, where this is not the last walk across the bridge.
Part of your job right now is to kind of be a scout and to be familiar with some of the games of the players who are at the top of their games right now. Does anybody come to mind as kind of a good pick for St. Andrews, or somebody whose game is well suited to that kind of course, that kind of environment?
I think Lydia would be hard to not pick. Has the short game, has the ability to control ball flight.
She's so creative.
Really so creative. But I think that's the most important thing there, is being able to control ball flight and kind of pick and choose and being smart more than anything. I really think local knowledge on that golf course is really important. And so I think it's going to be the player that embraces that tries to get some local knowledge, and whether it's from their caddy or getting a local caddy or getting someone that has played there before. I'd be hard pressed to not pick Lydia, to be honest.
It'd be pretty great for her to join you and Lorena. That's a pretty great list of winners at St. Andrews.
Cap off the Hall of Fame too. So
right. Let's transition. Let's get into Solheim Cup, which is just 3 weeks after St. Andrews. It's just a jam-packed part of the year. You're in the rare position of leading the U.S. team in back-to-back years. What'd you learn from last year? What's the most important lesson from your first go around last year?
Well, half a point's important. I think we all learned that. I learned so much. I mean, I don't even know how I would pick out one thing. I mean, I thought, we tried to put a lot of things in place behind the scenes to make it a great experience for the players, which we overwhelmingly exceeded at, and give them an environment where they can be successful. I mean, that was kind of my goal in the whole thing, was to create an environment where they could have fun and enjoy it. And because if you do that, they're going to play good golf. It's it's pretty amazing when you watch players, when you watch scores, and then you kind of know what's going on in their lives and knowing what's going behind the scenes. It's amazing how much that stuff affects play on the golf course. So creating that environment was number one for me.
So your team is, we're coming up on the end of the qualifying period. Your team's shaping up. Is there any part of your strategy? Are you looking at potential pairings? Like your short list, I'm sure, is getting shorter as we're getting closer. Is your strategy changing at all in these past few weeks as the team is shaping up?
No, I mean, right now we got 2 more tournaments. So you've still got about, mathematically, I think it's about 15, 16 players that still have an opportunity. And then there's certain ones of those that are higher on the list than others. The team is, there's been a few more changes than I thought there would be. You've had some players not play as well, and then you've had other ones play better. So it's been fun to watch. We changed our point structure this year too, so that top 40 finishes at LPGA events get points. And I think it's worked out really well because it's given us, it's the players that are playing the best are rising to the top. Lauren Coughlin's a great example. I mean, she's now up to 4th in points, wherein I feel like in our old point structure, it would have taken her a lot longer to move up. So our point structure is showing who is playing the best, which that's what I wanted out of the whole thing. And it helps make my job easier, and it justifies things, I think, a little bit more for the players too.
Yeah, that, once the team, you have your automatic qualifiers, I'm sure one of the hardest parts of this role is determining your captain's picks. You'll have 3 of them. What goes into how you choose your captain's picks? How does that process look? Once you have the automatic qualifiers, are you digging really deep into the data to figure out who's going to plug in best? Or is it more intangibles of, this gal is going to be great for team chemistry? What goes into that?
It's a little bit of everything. You've got experience at Solheim Cups. That matters. Experience at Solheim Cups, how they have played at Solheim Cups in the past matter. Their current form as well. Like we'll even dive into say, hey, how are they playing the last 3 months? To figure out say you've got a group of 4 players for 2 spots, of those 4, which one is trending in the right direction the last 3 months? Because sometimes, somebody may have gotten a lot of their points a year ago, but that doesn't help us right now. So points, the amount of points and how they played this year specifically, we'll kind of single that out. And then you can go to what type of player they are. Are they kind of a fairways, greens, ball striker? Or are they more of a rely on the putter and kind of streaky with the putter, because that affects pairings and what formats they're playing in. And do you have enough players for best ball? Do you have enough players for alternate shot? There's a lot, as you can tell.
When it comes to making these decisions about captain's picks, pairings, do you have a kind of working theory or approach to balancing statistics and then your own sense of just golf, right? Because clearly you have deep experience there that's maybe not related to just data. How do you mix those two, intertwine those two in your decision making?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I look at decisions that we made in 23, and there was like kind of the gut instinct, playing Lexi as much as we did. If you went straight off of stats, you would have never played Lexi as much as we did. You would have never put her out an alternate shot, and especially in that first spot. But I had a feeling she was playing better. She was trending in the right direction. And I just had a feeling that she was going to show up in that moment. So the gut is always there. And there's the part too, where I'm still playing. And so being around these players and actually seeing how they're playing, I played with Andrea Lee a couple weeks ago to actually, just to see how she's actually playing, and she's playing great, but the stats don't always show it sometimes. And so there's that part too of of being able to see them play and how they're actually playing, how their attitudes are, how they feel about their game. It's when you watch players and like they miss a 9-iron a little bit, and the ones that are kind of like, okay, it's all right, it was just a miss. But when they get like super frustrated over missing a 9-iron, it's kind of like, is there something else going on? Are they not liking where their golf swing's at? You can kind of read into things a little bit to figure out what's going on.
So we've got a home game this year after being in Spain last year. We'll be at Robert Trent Jones Golf Club outside DC. I know you were there for Media Day. I'm sure you've been scouting and seen it a few times. What are your thoughts about the course? Do you think there's anything in particular that's going to play to the strengths of the team? Interested to get your thoughts on how the course is going to shape up for everyone.
Well, first, it's a great match play golf course. Having 3 President's Cups there too has really helped us in, setting things up and for the fan experience, for, getting the crowds to be able to help us out as we make our way through the golf course. But the golf course itself I think it's going to play a little bit difficult in that, off of a lot of the tees, there's bunkers in the way, or the fairways kind of turn, and there's rough. But I don't think the rough will be crazy. We don't want pars winning every hole. We want players making birdies. We want to make this fun too. So there is some trouble off the tee. I think it is going to favor, somebody that hits it a little bit straighter. I think they're going to have more success there. And then. As you go, 14 is going to be a reachable par 5. There's some excitement there in the back 9, but in general, it's going to be more of a ball strikers type course. Got to hit fairways, got to hit the greens. It's your typical Robert Trent Jones. There's the greens are fairly big, but it's got little sections that you have to hit it into. And if you get in the wrong section, you're going to be struggling to make par. So, so I hope for my team's sake, I want it to stay a ball strikers course too.
And, we hear a lot for the Ryder Cup about the home team putting their thumb on the scale, Le Golf National versus what we're going to see next year at Bethpage. Do you, did that happen last year at all at Finca Courtesan? Do you plan on doing that at Robert Trent Jones this year? I feel like we hear much more about that on the men's side and not so much on the women's side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our officials, they've liked to stay more neutral on that and not allow that as much. I will say though, even last year, it was, I think it was the 14th hole there in Spain as well. We talked to the officials about after we had played the course, like, hey, why don't you use this tee for the drivable instead of this one? And they actually listened to us. So, Suzanne and I have actually been relatively civil about this. We want the golf course to showcase good golf more than anything. But I do think we're pushing the officials to becoming more open to helping us out a little bit, to have a home course advantage. It's not going to be extreme like you saw in France with the crazy rough or anything like that. But I do think there are some things that I'm trying to get, in the works for this year, and it's one thing to start that way too and make sure they keep it and they don't adjust tees so much that it, becomes we're driving every hole and every par 5 is reachable. I want it to stay more of a traditional golf course of having to hit fairways and having to hit greens, for my team to prevail.
What are the advantages that your team has that you think course setup could kind of exploit or emphasize?
Just more off the tee. I look at Spain. In Spain, there was tons of room off the tee. There were a couple holes that were tight, but in general, you could really, the fairways were massive. Let's just be honest. So it didn't really penalize bad tee shots. It really became, and then it became that, and then you had par 5s that became reachable. It kind of became more of a short game contest, which, looking at the stats, our team necessarily isn't going to win a short game contest. We're going to win more of a ball striking golf course. So we're going to try to keep it that way, and and just get that in the players' mindset too, of as they practice and they get ready, you're going to have to hit some 7-irons and maybe some 5-irons and things like that. It's not going to be all wedges. And the golf course sets up for that, to be honest. I mean, Robert Trent Jones is it's not an easy golf course. This is not like, there's some holes that are shorter, but it kind of pinches in and there's a tree here in the way where you can't just bomb a driver down there and to have a wedge in your hand. You maybe got to hit 3-wood or 5-wood and still have 8 or 9-iron in. So it's not, it's not going to play super easy either.
We'll address the kind of the elephant in the room of America, the Americans not winning since 2017. Obviously extremely close last year. It could have gone either way. Took a Herculean effort from the Europeans to retain. Do you feel any additional pressure having this being on, a home game? And do you feel any additional pressure to deliver that win that I'm sure everyone on the team and involved in the Cup is desperate for?
Yeah, I would say yes and no. I mean, I want the players to win this more than anything. I mean, we have so many that are going to be on this team that have never been a part of a winning Solheim Cup team, which is just crazy to me. And so I want them to experience what that's like more than anything. I didn't agree to do this job just because I wanted to win the Solheim Cup. Like, I wanted these players to be successful. And that's kind of been that's been in the back of my mind this whole time. And do I feel like we need to win? I think we do. But I also look back. I mean, you can go back to Glen Eagles, came down to the last putt. Inverness, it probably was the last 2 or 3 putts, 2 or 3 shots. Then you go back last year, that came down to pretty much the last match. I mean, the last 3 have been so close, and I don't think that's going to change. I think the golf is too good now. These players are too good, and that's the way it's going to be going forward. And so now it's just figuring out how we get our players over the hump of being on that winning side, of them pulling off the winning putt, them pulling off the winning shot, instead of being on the other side of it.
There's a big preparation phase for this, obviously, and I'm sure that you're in the weeds on that. That's the life right now.
Yes.
But there's a very different job that then happens on the week of the event itself, right? When you're leading the team during the competition. How do you see your role during those days that the golf is actually unfolding?
Yeah. I going into last year, everybody kept asking me, can you play and captain? And I was like, we'll see. But after doing it, there is absolutely no way you can do it. I was
listen
tired.
Up, Keegan.
Yeah, Keegan needs to listen, because I was tired playing Solheim Cup. I was beyond tired being captain. I mean, you're up before everybody else, and you don't go to sleep until everybody goes to their room. I mean, it was nonstop of just managing things that happened. My job, last year while they were on the golf course, I tried to help the caddies out as much as I could. I mean, everybody talked about how I was running all over the golf course, but I was trying to help the caddies, know how the wind was playing on certain holes. That was kind of the goal there. And then, it will be different in the US in that there's more events going on. There's more things that I'm going to be pulled to. So I'll be definitely using my assistants a lot more. They'll be kind of my extra set of eyes of during the practice days, knowing where people are at emotionally, how they're doing, how they're playing, all of that to get to those pairings on Thursday. But it's nonstop. It's having 12 kids. I mean, you could throw the caddies in there and you could have 24 kids. You're trying to keep track of everybody, make sure everybody's happy, have what they need, helping them manage, their families and their guests that have come and the ticket requests that come along the way. And it's just, there's a lot of things that you don't really think about that you have to manage that week.
It's an incredible stretch coming up. Thank you, Stacy, so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join us. Yeah. Best of luck at St. Andrews. Best of luck at Solheim. And thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All All right, Meg and I are back for recommendations. But first, a word from our sponsor, Golf Genius. Golf Genius Tournament Management is the industry's leading platform for managing golf events and tournaments. You'll find them in 60 plus countries, about 11,000 clubs, resorts, and public courses. They also work with associations, PGA sections, tours, and governing bodies. Golf Genius Tournament Management has a real track record of delivering a great experience for golfers. They do everything from event marketing and registration to automatic and personalized communications. They do tee sheets and other printed materials, formats and scoring, beautiful custom leaderboards, a custom event portal, and lots more. They also have mobile scoring and live leaderboard features to add excitement and fun to your events. Service and support come built in with this system, and Golf Genius gets outstanding reviews from its customers for the service and support they provide. I can speak to that fact because we actually use Golf Genius for our events at Fried Egg, and they have been consistently great, very responsive, and the system has just worked when we've needed it to work. It's a very simple ask. You can't have your tournament management system breaking down in the midst of an event, and we have never had that issue with Golf Genius. So to check out Golf Genius Tournament Management, go to golfgenius.com/TM. Golf Genius. That's what it's all about. All right. Meg, what are you recommending this week?
I am recommending Saying No, Garrett. This is it's a busy time of year for me. It's back to school. I'm getting bombarded with the school emails. And
you mean like saying no in general, saying no to people trying to take your time. Okay, yeah. I thought this was going to be an anti-drug advertisement for a minute.
You know, I can pivot that way if you want to, but no. I don't know about. I think you guys start a little bit after us, but we're fully in. This is the first full week back. I've got 4 kids, so it's like 4x all of the requests and the school supply drop-off party and the new kindergartner meetup and the park play date after they go to school for the first day for 2 hours and all this stuff. And, you know, this year I kind of helped myself. We were out of town last week, so I was able to just say no and have a really great excuse on a bunch of stuff. But yeah, I've kind of gotten better at recognizing these times of year where it gets super too much, and cannot recommend just cutting out the stuff that really doesn't matter and not going at 110%, you know, when you've got a million things to do and it's back to school and it's busy with work and all that. Cut out things that don't matter. Say no. You know, we missed a bunch last week being out of town. Everyone's okay. It's not a big deal. If other people, you know, got, you know, busy time with work or just busy in general with school or whatever, cannot recommend saying no to the stuff that really isn't that important. It's made this end of summer hectic stretch much, much easier for me.
Back to school buildup is terrible.
Yeah.
I would imagine with 4 kids even more so. I have 2. Brendan, our colleague at Fried Egg, also has 4. And so Fried Egg really has quite a brood going, you know,
like, soccer team
between you and Brendan.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it gets so crazy, and I totally agree. You got to look out for yourself around this time, and you know, if you can at all control when you have kids, like if you're doing planning in that way, try not to have a birthday around late August, early September, because that then just completely throws things into chaos. You know, a couple of birthday invitations have come our way around this time, and I'm like, really? On top of everything else that's going on?
Birthday party SZN has begun for us too, Garrett. It's tough.
Right. Yeah. In any case. All right. What I am recommending this week is paddleboarding. You ever been paddleboarding, Meg?
Last week.
I was wondering because you went to the lake.
And yeah. The kids loved it. Only, you know, got dumped by a wave a couple times. So It was great.
Yeah, the one thing about paddleboarding is that it's pretty difficult in rough conditions. I've seen people doing it in the ocean, and you need like an extra level of balance to stand up on a paddleboard in the ocean. But if you're on like a placid lake or a smooth river, then it's pretty easy. And you can do levels of difficulty. You can sit down, you can kneel. Standing up is probably the most fun and the most comfortable if you can, get the balance to do that, which does take a little bit of practice if you're older. Kids seem to pick it up pretty quickly. But it's just so fun. I think it's way better than kayaking, which I've always kind of found overrated. Like, I don't know. It seems like it should be more fun than it actually is. But then you get out there and you're just in this little kind of wet boat and and it's hard, But if you're paddleboarding, it really feels like you're standing on the body of the water. Like you're really just all of a sudden you can walk on water. And yeah, I love paddleboarding. We were doing it this past weekend, and there are some places to do it in the area where I live. So that just came to mind as something that people should try because it's pretty easy. Honestly, pretty easy to take up. If you're in relatively decent shape, have relatively decent balance, then you can definitely paddleboard. It's not one of those. It's not like surfing. Surfing is hard. Paddleboarding, fairly simple.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Great exercise. As long as the waters are calm, I'm with you on that. It gets tough.
No offense to all the kayakers out there. Please don't unsubscribe to the podcast. Meg, thank you for coming on and chatting with me today. And looking forward to the Women's Open.
Same here. Thanks, Garrett.
This episode of the Fried Egg Golf Podcast was produced by PJ Clark. Thank you, PJ. A great website that I want to recommend right now. This website is called proshop.thefriedegg.com. You can find all sorts of cool stuff there, stuff that Meg Adkins has curated, and she has very good taste. And so go see what she's offering there. Lots of great merchandise and things of that nature. But specifically, I want to recommend a St. Andrews t-shirt that we have. It has an illustration by Cameron Hurtis, who is the most talented member of the Fried Egg Golf staff by pretty much consensus. A great illustration of holes 7 through 12 on this t-shirt. Go check that out. It's really cool looking. All right, proshop.thefriedegg.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back again soon with another episode.